Hello there. Today I'm going to be talking about Jesus' message on earthly possessions and money. This message of Christ is found in Matthew chapter 6. The pericope starts off talking about earthly possessions and how we really don't need that many of them because what we really need is possessions in heaven. Obviously, we're not going to have earthly possessions for our entire life, but if we store treasures in heaven, we can have those for eternity. Another thing is that earthly possessions will eventually fade away or get destroyed or eaten or rusted. Something will go wrong, but treasures in heaven will stay forever. The next thing it talks about is that our eyes are like lamps, and that if we look at good things, we'll shine bright and vibrant, but if we look upon bad things, we'll just be all black on the inside, and that's not a good thing, of course. The next thing the chapter goes on to talk about is that we cannot serve two masters. A house divided cannot stand. Of course, the two masters here would be earthly possessions and God, because we just can't serve them. That's not how it works. Next, it goes on to talk about another earthly possession, which would be food. Now, of course, if you look at animals, they have very basic diets. They might have like a handful of things that they eat, and that's it. And they're eating just that. Us humans will take like a dish of chicken and mashed potatoes and corn and just eat it all at once, which is good for nutrition, but a lot of times we're putting too much seasoning and whatever on it, and we just need to have the basic food groups. We don't need to be all extravagant in what we're eating and having all kinds of fancy stuff, because that's really not what God planned for us. He planned us to have fruit and grains, really. Now, of course, we have vegetables and we can eat meat too, but again, everything should be done in moderation. We don't need that much extravagant food. The next earthly possession would be clothes. Now, a lot of times I'll see people outside with really expensive jackets and pants and shoes and everything. Again, we really don't need all that. We can just have basic, inexpensive clothing, and we can just have more money to put into treasures in heaven. We can be donating that to the poor or giving that to a church or something else, other than buying really overly expensive shoes and jackets and whatever. Now, of course, we have to do all this to be a disciple of Christ, because one, obviously, Jesus said it himself, so we should probably follow him. And two, we should be putting treasures in heaven, really, because a lot of Christ's disciples really just left all their earthly possessions behind to follow Jesus. So if we want to be a disciple of Christ, we need to follow suit. Now, personally, this applies to me quite a bit, because a lot of times if you see me, I'll be wearing like really inexpensive clothing, really inexpensive shoes, because I'd rather spend the money on other things, treasures in heaven. We don't need to have nice Jordans or anything down here. That's not gonna go into heaven. We can't take those. Doesn't make sense. And with food, we all have fast food. It's not a good thing. You should eat less processed food, because of course if you look at Daniel and his boys, they went on the diet and they didn't have the king's food. And it worked out really well. It's a lot harder to do that in today's society, which isn't a very good excuse. I really need to work on this. Now, of course, when it comes to other things, yeah, earthly possessions are awesome, like video games, whatever. That's pretty fun. But again, we all need to just work on treasures in heaven. It just makes sense. Thank you for listening. This has been my vlog about Jesus' messages on earthly possessions and money.